Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, our mission is very specific, and honestly, it's crucial if you're tracking this Week 12 matchup.
Oh, yeah. Chiefs and Colts.
Exactly. We're not just going to read the final injury report. We're using it as like a diagnostic tool.
Right.
We're decoding the final designations, the LUTs, the questionables, to really get at the strategy for Sunday's game at Arrowhead.
And that's the key. This final report, it's so much more than a list. It's a map. It shows you where the strategic weaknesses are, where the confidence is.
Well, you have to look beyond just the basic status.
Absolutely. You
Yeah.
have to interpret the language underneath it. How did participation change over the week? What's a coach really saying between the lines? For you, this deep dive is basically a shortcut to figuring out who's truly good to go and who isn't.
Okay, so let's jump right in. We'll start with the Kansas City Chiefs, and this is almost a case study in coach speak versus reality. The biggest name, the one officially ruled OUT, is running back Isaiah Pacheco.
And Pacheco's absence is, it's structural. It's not just some small detail. He's got that MCL sprain he suffered back in Week 8.
So this is his third straight game missed.
Third game. And when you lose Pacheco, you're losing the entire power element of your run game. He's the guy who he always falls forward. He brings the attitude.
What makes this whole situation so interesting, though, is the way his participation was logged this week. He started on Wednesday as a full participant.
Which is a huge signal for optimism, right? Everyone sees that and thinks, okay, he's back.
But then that optimism just faded pretty dramatically. He was downgraded to limited participation on Thursday and Friday, and then, boom, ruled out UT.
And that progression from full go to limited, then to sidelined, that is historically a major, major red flag.
It's the classic sign of a setback.
It is. It's what you see when an injury just isn't responding to game speed or, full workload. The knee just wasn't ready.
And yet, what did we hear from head coach Andy Reid? He immediately comes out and denies there was any kind of setback. He said they were just, and I'm quoting here, kind of seeing where he was at. And that the work he did was just scout team stuff and running around.
Right. Purely for assessment.
Purely for assessment.
And that's where you really have to start reading between the lines. That's classic Kothbik. If it was purely for assessment, why list him as a full participant on Wednesday?
Good point.
The fact they downgraded him suggests they tested it at full speed, they saw limitations, and they backed off. Reid's denial, that's just protecting his player.
And it keeps the Colts guessing.
Exactly. It keeps their defensive coordinator from knowing just how limited Pacheco really was. The reality is that progression shows a failed test run, no matter what the official statement says.
So, okay, if Pacheco is the definitive red light, how does that force the Chiefs' offense to change things up? Especially against a Colts front with some real talent.
Well, it changes everything. It means they have to lean, and I mean heavily lean, on the next guys up.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Jerick McKinnon.
Yep. McKinnon's your passing down specialist, but CEH has to take on that early down, between the tackles work now. And he just runs differently.
He's more finesse.
More finesse, less punishing. And what that does is it allows the Colts defense to maybe play with lighter boxes. They can prioritize coverage against that crazy Chiefs passing game because they know the power run element is gone.
So the Chiefs lose that blunt force that sets everything else up?
That's it. That's the perfect way to put it.
Okay, that makes the impact very clear. Now, let's shift from the definite absence to the area of high optimism for the Chiefs. The yellow light, the questionable group.
Right.
We've got two key guys listed as quest. Wide receiver Xavier Worthy with an ankle, and tackle Kingsley Suamataia, who's in the concussion protocol.
And this is a situation where that questionable tag feels, well, a little misleading. The most important data point here is what happened on Friday.
The upgrade.
The upgrade. Both of them, Worthy and Suamataia, were full participants in practice on Friday. Suamataia, who got his concussion just last week against the Broncos, for him to log a full session, that basically signals he's cleared a protocol and he's ready for contact.
So when you see a player get that full session in the day before the final designation, even if they're still listed as questionable, we can kind of read that as less about fitness and more about something else.
Absolutely. It's more about roster flexibility or maybe just managing pain tolerance. The report said the odds were good that at least one of them would play. I'd argue that based on that Friday FP status, the odds are heavily favored for both of them to be active.
And getting them back is huge. Suamataia shores up that O-line depth. Worthy brings that game-breaking speed.
Exactly. These Friday full participation tags, they essentially turn that yellow light into a flashing green.
And if we look beyond just the questionable guys, The rest of the core for Kansas City looks incredibly stable,
Right.
especially on the lines.
Yes.
And that stability, I think, is the hidden win in this report, even with losing Pacheco.
It really is.
Right.
I mean, let's run through who got a clean bill of health after being limited earlier. You've got guard Trey Smith, who's always managing that back issue, and tackle Jawan Taylor, listed with both knee and ankle concerns.
Both full participants by Friday, no game designation.
None. And it's the same story on the other side of the ball. Defensive ends George Karlaftis with his thumb and Charles Omenia with an ankle.
And then the rookies, Jaden Hicks and Jeffrey Bassa.
All fully cleared. No designation.
So what does that mean in practice, having Taylor and Smith good to go?
It means the Chiefs can run their entire playbook. They can run their heavy play-action schemes. They can trust their pass protection against the Colts rush. When you have that kind of stability up front, you don't have to use tight ends to chip or slide protection.
Which opens up more routes downfield.
It opens up everything. The health of that line, it just dramatically mitigates the loss of Pacheco.
That clarity gives us a really strong picture for KC. So let's flip over to the visiting Indianapolis Colts, because their injury report is, it's like a masterclass in high-stakes roster management.
It really is, especially with the guys coming back from the reserve injury list.
This is where we have to get into the nuance of that activation process.
It raises a big question, right? What's the point of the practice window if a guy can be a full participant all week and still not get activated?
So the Colts have 2 players designated to return from IR, linebacker Jalen Carleys with an ankle, and cornerback Charvarius Ward recovering from a concussion.
And we see 2 completely different outcomes, even though they had pretty much the same physical week.
Carleys was a full participant all week, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. He did everything. And yet the team ruled him OUT for Sunday.
Everything, but he's out. Then you have Ward, who also logged 3 straight days of full participation, but he's listed as questionable.
So Carleys is physically able to play, but won't. Ward is also physically able and might play. You said this is a roster management decision, so let's unpack that for Carleys. Why burn an evaluation week and not activate him?
It's purely about the 53-man roster math. When a player is designated to return, the team gets a 21-day window to evaluate him in practice.
Okay.
After that, they either have to activate him or he's done for the season. So by ruling Carleys OUT, even with his FP status, the Colts are just extending that window.
They're kicking the can down the road.
Exactly. They feel they need more time.
Yeah.
Maybe they want to see how the ankle responds to a full week of work next week, or maybe they just need to keep that roster spot open for depth somewhere else. It's a conservative move.
Whereas with Ward, that questionable tag gives them options. It says he's medically cleared, but they have until 90 minutes before the game to make the final call.
Precisely. That flexibility is invaluable. If they activate him now, that's it. He's on the roster. The questionable tag lets them wait until the last possible second to be absolutely sure. It tells you that for Carleys, they're prioritizing long-term strategy over 1 week's availability.
Let's stick with that theme of contrasting outcomes and look at the defensive end rotation for the Colts. It's like a tale of 2 recoveries. We're comparing 2 players who both missed the last 3 games. First, defensive end Tyquan Lewis, dealing with a groin injury. He was upgraded to full participation on Friday, but he's still listed as questionable.
Okay, and then you have his counterpart, defensive end Samson Ebukam, missed the same 3 games, but with a knee injury. He was also upgraded to full participation on Friday,
Yeah.
but he received no game designation. And that's the whole story right there. That lack of a designation is the key.
So Ebukam is fully cleared. He's ready to go. A huge boost for their pass rush. Lewis, though, he's a game-time decision, even though he did the exact same work on Friday. What does that tell us about the difference in medical confidence between, say, a knee recovery and a groin recovery?
Groin injuries are they're notoriously tricky, especially for an explosive athlete like a defensive end. One full practice doesn't always convince the medical staff that it won't tighten up or, restrain under game conditions.
So there's a higher risk of re-injury.
A much higher risk. The fact that Ebukam's knee got no designation tells us the medical team is completely confident. With Lewis, that questionable tag means there's still some lingering risk, and the team wants to hold off on that decision until they absolutely have to make it.
That distinction between the guy who practices fully and is cleared and the guy who practices fully and is still questionable, that is the advanced lesson here.
It is, and Ebukam's return is huge. The Colts need to get pressure without blitzing if they want to beat the Chiefs. Getting him back with no questions asked lets them do that.
Okay, before we tie this all together, we have to confirm the status of the Colts starting quarterback. Daniel Jones listed with that fibula and calf issue.
Yeah, that combination is complex.
But he was upgraded to full participation by the end of the week.
He's going to play. Full participation on Friday, that erases any doubt. Managing a bone issue and a soft tissue issue in the lower leg is tough, but the fact that he got a full week of practice in means he can run the full playbook without limitations.
And we should probably give a quick nod to a couple of other guys who were managed for rest.
Kenny Moore and Grover Stewart.
Right. They had some planned days off or limited sessions.
Standard veteran maintenance. They both ended with no game designation. No concern there at all.
All right, let's synthesize all this. What are the biggest strategic factors that you think are going to influence Sunday's game based on this report?
Okay, factor one has to be the structural loss of Isaiah Pacheco for Kansas City. They're forced to rely on finesse now in the run game.
Which invites the Colts to change their defensive focus.
It absolutely does. They can focus more on the aerial threat.
Okay.
Factor two is the flip side of that, the stability of the Chiefs' offensive line. Trey Smith and Juwan Taylor being fully cleared is massive. It lets them run their complex pass schemes to counter the Colts' rush.
And factor three.
Factor three is the high-stakes chess game the Colts are playing with their activations. The difference between Ibukam being cleared and Lewis being questionable tells you where their confidence is. And holding Carley's back despite his full participation, that shows a long-term focus on protecting the roster.
And that brings us to what I think is the most valuable insight from this whole report. We saw multiple players, Wordy, Suamataia for the Chiefs, Ward for the Colts, who all logged a full participation practice on Friday. But they all are still carrying that questionable designation into Sunday.
This is the final layer you have to peel back. If a player is physically capable of getting through a full high-intensity practice, then that questionable tag isn't really about physical ability anymore.
Right. So what is it about?
It's about one of three things. It's either about pain management, it's about protecting that player from the risk of re-injury at full game speed, or
it's strategic.
It's strategic. It's about withholding information from your opponent. The team knows if the guy's going to play, but the opposition is forced to prepare as if he will.
If a player is truly 100%, they get no designation, like Ibukam.
Exactly. The fact that they're still questionable suggests there's a tiny element of risk the team is still weighing. Or maybe the coaches just want to do one last check pregame to see how the injury responded to 24 hours of rest.
It's leverage.
It is. It's leverage right up until the final moments before the game.
That's a perfect final thought. The injury report is as much about psychological strategy as it is about physical condition. We hope you feel thoroughly informed and ready to interpret every designation for Week 12. That's it for this deep dive.